Good evening, everybody. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the South Haven City Council for Monday, February the 17th, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The invocation this evening will be given by Mr. Travis Wilson of the Peace Lutheran Church. Good evening, Travis.
Good evening. Good to see you all.
You as well.
Thank you. Let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you for the many blessings and the opportunities that we have in our day today and that still lie ahead of us. I pray that you would bless all of our city council persons, our mayor, our city staff, our contractors, emergency personnel, and those who work to make this a great place that we call home. Enliven our meeting this evening with your Spirit. Give us a sense of wisdom and discernment and courage as we speak and as we act for the good of our city. I pray your blessings on the agenda before us and what lies ahead for those who speak and those who listen, that good things would be done. Amen.
Amen. Thank you as always for getting us started. And next, if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Travis.
Jeff Arnold.
Here.
Chris Campbell.
Here.
Joe Reeser.
Here.
Steve Schlock.
Here.
George Sleeper.
Here.
Letitia Wilkins.
Here.
Scott Smith.
Here. That takes us to the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's approved. Next, we have the consent agenda, items A through J.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through J.
Second.
Motion a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Arnold.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Reeser.
Yes.
Schlock.
Yes.
Sleeper.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes, which takes us to new business. City Council will be asked to consider the approval of the following special event applications. We have three of them. We have special event 2020-03 Harborfest 2020 to be held from June the 19th, 2020 at 8 a.m. until June the 21st, 2020 at 5 p.m. with tear down of the beer garden to take place on June the 22nd, 2020. We'll start with that one. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve special event 2020-03.
A second.
Motion is second. All right, Brian, any updates? I've read the
Yeah.
packet.
Members of council, we do have a representative here who can speak on behalf of Harborfest. Staff would just note that given the high water situation, there is a bit of a spirit of the unknown as it relates to Water Street and the areas near this event. The only word of caution we would have is just there's no reason to deny the approval. There is every reason to just make sure that the applicant understands that we are facing just a rare commodity with the form of high water, and there's a chance that we may have to modify the event as we get closer to the date of the activities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just want to come on up and just state your name and address, and
Ken Van Horn, president of Harborfest.
thank you for being here.
We do realize the high water issue. We kind of have a plan B in mind if we can't have it down there. Obviously, our first choice is to have it at the festival site, but we understand that nobody can control nature, so we're willing to work and do whatever we have to do to make it happen wherever, so.
And from staff's perspective, they've got a long-established relationship with the city. They're a quality organization. They're going to run the event just fine. It's just the situation that with the use of dragon boats or some of just those waterfront activities could be impacted as we get further into the summer.
The other thing on here, I didn't catch till it was just said, but it has us ending at 5 o'clock on Saturday. We typically end at 10 o'clock on Saturday, so. And that's when the music would end and the beer garden ends and such, so.
In the packet it says 10, doesn't it?
What's that?
I think in the packet it says 10.
Oh.
Okay.
That's the 21st is Sunday.
Gotcha. That's from start to end.
Well, Yeah, I'm just double checking our dates here.
Yes, that is correct. I'm sorry. So we will tear down on the 21st, not the 22nd. So then that would be correct. We would be done by 5 o'clock on Sunday.
Okay.
Ken, if it's helpful, I can bring kayaks if it's too much water, so.
You know, we might have to do that. We might just have to change it up, so.
Very good. And again, thanks for all the work to organize that. I know it's a ton of work, so we appreciate your commitment to doing that. Are there any questions, public questions on this one? No takers for kayaks? Any council questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve special event 2020-03 Harbor Fest 2020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. Next special event 2020-04, the 9th Annual Salute to Veterans, to be held on August the 15th, 2020, from 5:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. along the Black River from the lighthouse to the bridge.
I'll make a motion for special event 2020-04.
Second.
Motion and a second. Brian, great event.
It's a great event, very similar talk for the council. Staff has actively worked with Salute to Veterans Group for a number of years. It's an event that runs quite smoothly. It's an event with an absolutely great cause, but it's also an event that occurs right on your waterfront. And as we get into the summer months, we'll better know what the impact is potentially on this event. Staff recommends approval, just with that one caveat to the event organizer, that there is the potential that our marinas could be closed. There is the potential that just navigating this area could be more difficult. Now, with that said, that is just an unknown at this time.
Okay, thanks for the update. Any public questions on this one? Seeing none, council?
It looked like they had built in some contingencies into their
Yep.
application, so it was good thinking on their part.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great event, and again, thanks to the organizers. If you have never been, I would encourage you to make time to go down. It's a very nice event, well-run, nice to see the veterans being recognized. So we have a motion and a second to approve special event 2020-04, the 9th Annual Salute to Veterans. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's approved. Next, this one does not need water. How awesome is that? Special event 2020-05, North Shore Elementary, 5K Field Day, to be held on June the 8th, 2020, from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. along the route, which was included in our packet.
Make a motion to approve special event 2020-05 North Shore Elementary 5K Field Day.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any updates?
Yeah, so the good news on this is the biggest water crisis will be getting water to the kids halfway through the race. I years ago went to my first North Shore 5K. I was told by one of the teachers just to hang out at the start line and just wait. The kids would make it about 100 yards before a few would just be completely gassed because they go out at a dead sprint. Now, with that said, this is something that's organized by the Southampton Public Schools. We work between Shays and the police department to run the course. Staff has no concerns, and quite frankly, it's a favorite from the city staff to just observe.
Very good, thank you. Any public questions? Council questions? It is super fun. I miss kids in elementary school as they get ready to graduate from high school, but super, super fun. Nice to see all the public out supporting the kids and squirting water on them, and
Yeah.
to your point, lots of fun for the staff too. So we have a motion and a second to approve special event 2020-05, the North Shore Elementary 5K Field Day. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Approved. Thank you. Next, we're going to be consider the appointment of Mr. Randy Timmer to the Downtown Development Authority for a partial term expiring in 2021.
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Randy Timmer to the Downtown Development Authority for a partial term expiring in 2021.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. I see Randy's not here, but we all know Randy. I mean, any comments you need to make other than his information's in the packet?
Yeah, his information's in the packet. Mr. Timmer is 20 years professional contractor, actively working throughout the downtown and city resident.
Yeah, good guy. So nice to see his name on there. Are there any public questions on that one? Council questions? No. All right, motion second to approve Mr. Randy Timmer to the DDA. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. He is appointed. Next, we're going to receive a presentation from Ms. Deborah Davidson, our DDA Director, on the DDA planned capital projects. Good evening, Deb.
And good evening. This is always exciting stuff to talk about. So On February 5th, the DDA met for a workshop with the sole purpose of discussing what they want to do in the next few years. I'd like to point out, these projects are not planned specifically. It's basically a wish list of priorities. So I can go through these. There's 5 different ones. Ice rink improvements. Costs have increased over the years as material has to be delivered to the ice rink in order to make the surface level for the grid work. So if the DDA were to fund putting the grid work in the ground and with a level surface over it, they could save around $25,000 to $30,000 a year in labor. So that is one of the things they talked about. Also, they talked about Broadway Street, streetscape improvements. A concept design was completed in 2015. So that is basically ready to go with a little tweaking when the time comes. Improvements include adding trees, parking, landscaping, bike racks, trash cans, ornamental street lights, and curb bump out. So basically what we have done for Phoenix and Center Street improvements. And number 3, now these are in no order, by the way, no priority order. Improvement of existing parking and construction of additional parking. This is really an ongoing effort by the DDA and city staff. We continue to seek opportunities to construct additional parking. We know there are certain times of the year that we could use some extra parking. So in the past, we have worked with property owners surrounding the DDA district, or the downtown specifically, to possibly add parking. Some of these have not worked out. There's still some other possibilities ongoing. But along with that, another priority is to acquire real estate. So with the specific purpose of purchasing property for parking. So that would go along with the parking expansion for the downtown. Then our 5th item is the downtown public restroom improvements. We do have restrooms over at the east end. It would be a benefit to have more restrooms. The ones that are there off in the rear of the Visitors Bureau building, they do not function quite so well. So if we had a building that was more comparable to like the one on Huron and Kalamazoo Street parking lot, it could service not only the ice rink, farm market, and events that are held at the pavilion, but for all visitors in the downtown. So to have that possibly on the east end here would be beneficial. So that was discussed at length. And I don't know if you recall a couple years ago when the DDA purchased the Bars Printing building and had it demoed, and we restructured the parking over there to add more parking in the Huron Street parking lot. We looked at that green area there, and to put maybe a restroom facility there. Well, the more it was discussed, it was going to be hard for skaters to get over there. I mean, with how many mats do you have to use to get over there, and also skaters, especially children crossing the parking lot. So we kind of had to shy away from that one. So still working on that. So these 5 possibilities, we have ice rink improvements, Broadway Street streetscape improvements, improvements of existing parking and construction of additional parking, downtown public restroom improvements, and acquiring real estate. All of these are priorities to the DDA, and they will be completed based on need, funding availability, and of course, grant opportunities. So this is the list they came up with for their priorities, and that's what we have. Any questions about that?
Deb, for the improvements on Broadway, what sections of Broadway are we talking about?
It is planned for Phoenix Street to almost Dykeman Bridge.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other
Yes.
question?
When you look at parking, and then you look at real estate to help parking, we all know parking can be a problem, especially for tourists. But everything I've read, and I even have a gentleman friend in Chicago that owns parking, parking lots are on the downside now because, as our own Governor Granholm, when she gave one of the speeches, talked about in the future, we're going to need less parking because of, and I know this sounds way off, but it's not, because this is a capital expenditure. It's going to last for many years. We're going to have more self-driving cars. We're going to have more sharing of cars. We're going to have more Uber. And I would think if parking ever got to the point with tourism here, maybe we could do what Ann Arbor does during their art festival, where they have a bus that brings them in. Anything but having to spend millions for parking and no acquire land would seem like a better choice of not using our money and putting it into improvements of the city, especially when we're faced right now with the high water and all the costs associated with it. So just a thought.
That
But
is a great
have you looked at
point.
that, the whole idea of parking may actually go down the need in the future?
Yes, yes. And I'm glad you brought that up because the Visitors Bureau does have a shuttle they run certain busy weekends in the summer. So we have partnered with them to do that. So, yeah, that is very much a possibility to start maybe shying away from that. But it's kind of on the list to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah. And we've had that, I mean, those have been discussions we've had. That's why we did the shuttle, because we're trying to figure out how to get the employees out of the downtown and alleviate some of that burden. And we do have a certain consultant you should talk to before we talk
Yeah.
about parking who would echo the concerns of less parking is better, or well, adequate parking. How's that sound to our downtown merchant? But we'll keep an eye on them all. So, anything else? Questions or public questions on this list?
If there's no questions, I'd love to embarrass Deb just for a couple of minutes. So some of you know Deb, some of you may not, but Deb has decided to pursue greener pastures. She'll be retiring from many very productive years for the city of South Haven. And just so you all know her track record, next time you walk down Phoenix Street, next time you drive down William Street, this spring as you work your way down Center Street, if you ever spend any time on the South Beach, if you ever hang out on Monroe Boulevard where we acquired additional space to extend the South Beach, if you spend any time on North Beach, or if you enjoyed the tall ships many years ago, or have ever enjoyed Harbor Fest, these are all projects that Deb has her fingerprints on, and I just can't stress enough. The person that will fill her shoes has some very big shoes to fill. So I personally just thank Deb for all of her quality service and just excellent attitude. She's great to work with. Thank you, Deb.
For sure. And she's going to spend a lot more time watching Purdue. Are they still playing? How's the basketball team doing?
They're playing.
Okay. Right now? Are they playing like as we speak? Do you need to get out of here?
No,
Okay,
no,
all right.
no. We're just hoping we can make it to the NCAA
Okay,
tournament.
all right. All right. Perfect. Well, as Brian said, you deserve many kudos because
Thank you.
a lot of fun to work with you, and you've done a ton of great work. So
It's been a ride, a great ride.
very good. Thanks for coming and sharing. All right. There's no other questions. We'll roll on. Next, we're going to be asked to receive a presentation from Police Chief Thompson on the city's narcotic millage and law enforcement efforts. And she's got some special guests with her tonight, too.
Members of council, this is probably the safest room in the county
For
tonight,
sure.
so-
I feel good right now.
So Chief Thompson is here, and then we have some esteemed guests. I will defer to Chief Thompson.
Thank you. So I have, sitting next to me is Sheriff Dan Abbott from the Van Buren County Sheriff's Department, and next to him is Lieutenant Casey Davis, and he is the supervisor of the Van Buren County Narcotics Team. So I wanted to, I have a lot more information, so I'm probably going to spread a little bit of this out over some future meetings, but just some of the basics on enforcement efforts for the South Haven Police Department. The South Haven Police Department has been assigning 2 officers to enforce laws pertaining to the manufacture, sale, delivery, and use of controlled substance as defined by applicable state laws, rules, and regulations for over 30 years. Interagency cooperation and coordination is essential to properly investigate drug tips, conduct surveillance, gather intelligence, execute search warrants, and ultimately achieve successful prosecutions. SHPD has in the past assigned its 2 officers to work with the Michigan State Police Southwest Enforcement Team. And most recently, we have enhanced interagency cooperation by assigning one of the 2 officers to work with Sheriff Abbott's Van Buren County Sheriff's Office Narcotics Unit. The goal is to focus more on the South Haven area specifically. So through the years in South Haven, and this is pretty much covers the time that I've been here, there have been different trends and popular drugs of choice and the corresponding adverse impacts resulting in Southwest Michigan, including South Haven. In the late 80s and early 90s, it was crack cocaine. It was unfortunately common, even here in South Haven, to view open-air drug dealing. During the late 90s, early 2000, it was prescription narcotics, OxyContin, and the use and manufacture of methamphetamines. Prescription pills, well, they still are, they were being overprescribed, prescribed, and sold for up to $1 a milligram on the street. Users were eating, snorting, freebasing OxyContin, which is, of course, an opioid. At this time, also, methamphetamine was being cooked inside people's houses and apartments with household items that could be purchased at any store with recipe instructions all over the internet. Houses, garages, trailers were exploding. Individuals were going to emergency rooms with severe burns, and some even dying while attempting to cook methamphetamine. So today, we see methamphetamine already produced in the form of crystal or ice, most of which is smuggled in the United States and distributed. It has become a major problem here, along with heroin. Without going into a long dissertation on why, it basically comes down to supply and demand. They are both cheap and easy to obtain. Currently, the impact of opioid sales and use in our area has been devastating. According to a 2019 study by the University of Michigan, 24 of Michigan's 83 counties are considered high risk, one of the highest in the country. The high-risk category is defined as high opioid overdose mortality rates coupled with low capacity to treat opioid addiction. Van Buren County is among these 24 counties. As I reported over the past year, our police department has recognized the necessity to carry Narcan and the unfortunate use of it many times to save individuals who have overdosed. Many of the fatal overdoses are attributed to fentanyl, which is not only being used to cut heroin, but actually being substituted as heroin. Many users believe they are buying heroin, but instead the product is 100% fentanyl. So besides the most serious deadly impacts, narcotics activity has significant attribute to other crimes. Luckily, South Haven does not have a high violent crime rate, homicide, shootings, etc. However, one example of where it does impact crime here is our retail frauds and larceny complaints. A large percentage of them have a nexus to drug activity. Suspects we arrest for these offenses commonly admit they need money or items to trade for drugs. The 2 armed robberies we have investigated over the past 3 years were also linked to drug activity. In summary, many of the narcotics enforcement activities may not be visible, as much of these by nature are conducted undercover. However, it always remains a top priority for SHPD, for the safety and overall welfare of our community. And working with neighboring law enforcement is essential, and we're going to continue to build these relationships. And the one drug I did not talk about, which I would like to save for a later presentation because it's a little bit more lengthy, but I wanted to talk about marijuana. So if anyone's wondering, I did not mention that in here because that's a little bit more information I had to provide. So, but anyway, introduce Sheriff Abbott.
I'll make it real quick. First of all, I want to thank Brian and Chief Thompson. We had several meetings prior to putting this into motion about getting one of your narcotic detectives on our team. One of my goals after being elected was try and better each division at our office and take it up to the next level. One of that was the narcotics division. For years, they were productive, but we felt that we were lacking over on the west side with informants and getting the information we needed. They were working cases over here, but it was a lot harder for these guys to be able to get into the cases that they really wanted because a lot of the information was filtered into Sweat because of the two officers being on Sweat, which that's the way it should be. But after several meetings, we were able to get one of your narcotics officers on our team now. The numbers have been skyrocketing since Lieutenant Davis took over our narcotics division. Our goal was to double or triple the numbers that this division's ever had. Last year, he more than doubled those numbers, and he's on pace even this year to do even more than that. And he's going to go into detail on that. I could sit here and talk for a long time on the narcotics division and all our divisions, but there again, that's his expertise, and that's why I had Lieutenant Davis come here tonight to briefly talk about it with you folks. But thanks again for allowing this to happen.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Hello, Casey Davis, Lieutenant with the Sheriff's Department. I took over the narcotics unit in February of last year, so I'm coming up on my year being back in the unit. We just had an officer assigned to our division early in January from South Haven Police Department. We consist of one sergeant, 2 county detectives, and then the South Haven officer. This year we've worked close to 35 felony cases already, so I think that puts us on pace for 240 some throughout the year. Last year we worked about 180, and the year before that, before I took over the narcotics unit, only worked 80 felony cases. So one of my big goals was, as well as the sheriff's, was to work better with outside agencies and work obviously more in the area. With the assignment of the South Haven officer, South Haven City, South Haven Township is going to get a very direct involvement from the Van Buren County Narcotics Unit. Any tips will be followed up on immediately. Any cases will also be followed up on immediately. Recently, we just worked a heroin investigation over in the South Haven Township, South Haven City area, and Covert. We were able to wrap that up last week, putting 2 subjects in jail for delivery of heroin. Like Chief Thompson stated, all of our heroin that we are purchasing right now, we send to the Michigan State Police Crime Lab, and I would say about 99% of it is coming back fentanyl positive. We're not doing purity tests on that, but it just kind of goes to show how the common trends are adapting. Fentanyl is a very cheap synthetic opiate to purchase, or to make, and to the sale that they're getting and the money that they're getting back from manufacturing this cheap synthetic opiate is a lot more than they would get from heroin. That's why we're seeing a big trend on it. Other than that, we look forward to being over in the area more, and anything, our relationship with South Haven City is very positive, and we look forward to being a big factor over in the area.
Very good.
You guys have any questions?
I guess one question I had was, when can voters expect to see this millage renewed or on the ballot for renewal.
Right, so we're starting a little bit early, but that will be up for renewal in 2021, November of 2021. So a little bit of time to show you all how hard we're working, so.
It's a good thing, so I'm glad we're starting early.
Yes.
And just so the council understands, the millage, for it to be placed onto the ballot, it'll have to come to council first. We'll do that sometime in the spring of this year of 2020, with the intent then of having it on the 2021 ballot cycle. I would anticipate that we would be looking at sometime in early 2021 for the public consideration.
Very good. Any other questions? I do appreciate the information as well, and Sheriff, your presence on this side of the state is duly noted. We appreciate that, and again, enjoyed watching you on television the other night. Very nice. I would just say it'd be nice to, as you present information just closer to that date, clearly the problem has changed, it morphs, and you're trying to keep track of all that, and I'm glad you're doing that and not I. Just ways we're impacting, which numbers show a lot, but then are there any thoughts on, are there things preventively we could be doing? And I know you are, but just to share that as well, just to, obviously, it'd be nice to keep it from happening in the first place.
Those ideas, because I wanted to start with maybe just kind of an overall view tonight, but, marijuana can be an entire conversation, and then, coupled with, how we're, treatment options, the court has some new different, drug courts for offenders. So, yeah, there's a lot, after maybe people are apprehended or arrested, as far as treatment goes.
And folks do a good job about calling our office. I shield calls on a regular basis, and people don't want to get involved. They don't want their names out there. So just to reiterate, if you guys see something or anybody sees something that's going on that even looks suspicious, cars coming and going into residence, you can call our office, and it can be anonymous. The name does not have to go out there. And that's been big for these guys, too, with running with stuff. I flip stuff to them. People call me directly about, I'm seeing this. I just want to get involved. I'm worried about it. My neighbor, I think, is doing this. We would never put anybody's name out there. So if you see anything like that, you can reach out to me directly, and I'll make sure that the lieutenant and his team gets the information. Or anybody in the community, if you hear that, please filter it to our office. I mean, that's what these guys do. They're good at it. They're very aggressive, and they will keep people's name out of it. So, and I want to apologize for not shaving and being in uniform tonight. This is the first time in like several months. I've had 3 days off, and it feels kind of good, and I got to go back to work tomorrow. So,
oh, good. We're all good. All right, that's perfect. Again, thanks for the information, and thanks for keeping us all safe. So, money invested and well spent. So, we will look forward to seeing that on the ballot.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. I just need a motion to schedule a workshop session to begin the annual priority setting process to occur on Monday, March the 9th at 7.
I'll make a motion to set the dates for a city council priority setting workshop, Monday, March 9th at 7 p.m., and if needed, Monday, March 16th at 5:30 p.m.
I'll second.
All right, motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We'll meet. Next, City Council will be asked to consider a motion to approve the proposed license agreement with the owners of 742 Monroe Boulevard for the placement of shoreline erosion protection. I just need a motion to get discussion going.
I'll make the motion to approve the proposed license agreement with the owners of 742 Monroe Boulevard for placement of shoreline erosion protection.
Second.
All right, motion and a second, and Kate has scooted up to show us more.
Well, this is a license agreement that's coming before the city council to add armoring going 40 feet north of the house here at 742 Monroe. So it pretty much would be going where you can see that erosion there, occurring there. So it would be armoring here. So this was a couple stages that was going to be going on here. This armoring occurred in 2018. This had received Harbor Commission and Planning Commission approval. As we saw the water levels rise, you saw that some of this armoring was failing. And as you can see, it was starting to erode back here. So the owners came back to the city and talked about possibly adding more armoring, which they could do with their current permit, and then adding a spur that would go about 40 feet north and add initially some geotextile bags that would be armored later on. None of that part going north has occurred yet, but what they were currently able to do was bolster this area here under their current permit. So they went back to the Harbor Commission and the Planning Commission to see about this 40 feet here that would be under this license agreement. So both commissions recommended approval, but did want to have the license agreement that's before you today approved, which would mean that anything that was installed here on city property would be the cost of the owners. There's a number of conditions in here. I can walk those through with Brian.
Yeah, so members of council, the Harbor Commission and Planning Commission both approved the license agreement concept. Both boards were emphatic about the fact that if this material is to be placed there, that it will be placed at the homeowner's expense. The homeowner is in the audience tonight with her representative. The homeowner and their representative have worked to come up with the design and then worked with the city's attorney to review the proposed license agreement. The thing that I would stress to council is that the license agreement is clear that during the first 20 years of the life of the wall, if there is any maintenance requirements or for some reason the wall is no longer deemed necessary and the council wishes to have it removed, that would then be borne by the homeowner. After that 20-year time period, it notes in the report that there would be a prorated formula. Unfortunately, that was an earlier revision. That prorated formula is not in the license agreement. So after 20 years, it would then become public property. It would be the city's cost to remove. The way that this thing is designed, we anticipate that as the water levels begin to drop, more than likely what you'll see is essentially nothing. You'll see sand overtaking the armor stone. Now, this is a situation that's unfortunate. The home is built within 5 feet of the property line, so there really isn't room to do additional armoring to support the home. This is something that's been actively discussed by the two advisory boards and has consent from both of those boards. From staff's perspective, we'll happily answer any questions, but we do know that the homeowner and her engineer are here, and if it pleases the council, we could have them spend a few minutes just talking about the need for the project. Mr. Mayor, does that sound like a good next step?
That sounds perfectly fine, and I think we've read it, so I think it's up to, if you'd like to share, I mean, you're welcome, or if you're...
Do you want Daryl or Sue? Okay.
Well,
Hi, I'm Sue Rosenhain. I'm the owner of the property. I really appreciate your time considering this. We've done a lot of work in trying to find different options to save our home. We looked at steel wall barriers because that could be constructed on our property rather than on utilising any city property. But unfortunately, a steel barrier will cause a lot of damage to City Bluff because it won't absorb any energy. And so we've been looking at the armour stone as the best option to both save city property as well as our home. The bluff as it stands now, you can see it's eroded quite a lot, and the engineers have confirmed that there are a lot of cracks in the bluff as it stands now, which means that it's highly likely to collapse on its own if there isn't any reinforcement to it done in the near future. So both the city and we, with the engineer's help, have come to an agreement that we will pay for the stone revetment, which would be very similar to what you see in the front of our home. And our neighbours all up and down, going south, a lot of them have this kind of revetment because it's been proven to absorb the energy of the lake and be less destructive to the harbour and all the properties around it. Because the city is our neighbour, we have come to you today to ask for your permission to do something that will benefit both of us, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple concerns or questions. from talking to Brian today, Edgewater has already been in talks with the city of doing something all the way down, call it Monroe Boulevard, to shore up the erosion and shore up the bluff so it never gets as far as the street. How will this, Brian said it could tie in, but I can't visualize how those stones are going to look if we extend those as compared to what Edgewater is, because I haven't seen what Edgewater is doing. So
Edgewater is
visually,
here.
I'd
They
like to
can-
see how the two go together.
Sure.
And then the last thing is, when the water is lower, people could walk almost in front of your stones in front of your home. And I don't know what all those stones would do when the water recedes. Will people still be able to walk, or will that area never be walkable again, even with low tide?
Oh, I can answer that one. When we built these, there was a lot of beach in front when we actually built the revetment. 2 years before that, we actually put sandbags up to help protect our property as a temporary measure because we were given advice that it was likely that the water would go down again. It did not. So then the rocks were put where the sandbags used to be. But the plan is that when the water recedes, both with our stone revetment that's on our property that you see there, as well as the proposed stone work that will occur running north-south on city property, the plan would be, and it's in the licence agreement, that we would cover the rocks with sand and grass plugs, and they would fade back into the bluff, and they would be an additional support for the bluff to stop the bluff eroding in future, but they would be covered, and you would just get a gradual slope of bluff the way it looked 5 years ago when we purchased it, and we had another half an acre of backyard and then a whole beach in front of that before you hit the water. And the same thing would happen on the city bluff. It would just have a softer decline, a softer slope than what it does now. At the moment, it's actually quite dangerous. It has a bit of a concave underneath it, and so people walking over to the edge to have a look could very easily go for a tumble over the edge. This will provide a slope that is a bit safer, and when we cover it up with sand down the road, when the water goes back down, you won't see any of it at all.
So we have a commitment from you that after you put the wall up, and I don't know the time frame, but if the wording said as soon as the water goes down, you would cover that up with sand. Would you also cover all of your rocks by your house so they'd all be congruent, or would that still look white with white stones?
Our plan is to cover it all with sand. We have a legal commitment under the licence agreement to cover what would be on city property with sand and grass as soon as the water goes. The high water mark is level with the front of what you see now. So our commitment is not to cover it with sand just when it's close, because we don't want to spend all that money to cover it with sand and grass and then have a storm that washes it all away. But once the water goes down to being in front of our current stonework at the back of our property there, we would cover the city properties, rocks with sand and grass. That's a legal commitment. To cover the rocks that are on our property, it's just our personal preference that it look like bluff and not like stone, and we have no legal commitment to do that, but that's what our plan is.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? And I will just say, I mean, at the end, this is uncharted territory, as you know. I mean, we've got some, this spring, right, Ryan, we've got the University of Michigan was here last year. We're going to have the University of Michigan, Michigan Tech, and then LEA working with the city, the townships, to really kind of look at this process, the revetment. There are many variations. There's wall, there's rock plus wall, there's wood. So really, we're still learning, and we will continue to learn. So there was more study that will be forthcoming. So before we do anything else, to your question, what will it look like? I mean, it could be that. It could be different depending on what Mother Nature decides to give us in the next few months. So is that accurate as far as the upcoming meetings?
Yeah, so to address your point, we're working with Michigan Tech, University of Michigan, and LEA. LEA is a planning agency based in Traverse City. Starting this May, our planning commission will be partnering up with South Haven Charter Township, Casco Township, to work on long-term planning to address some of the high water concerns. As you look at the overhead screen, I just pulled up the Parks Commission from their January meeting and asked about the question of what are we planning long-term for Monroe? This is it. The City Council will be asked to consider action at their March regular meetings for this year's Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant applications, both the Land and Water Conservation Fund and the MNRTF. This plan was developed in 2018 with input from both the Parks Commission, the Planning Commission, and the City Council. Edgewater, this is Daryl from Edgewater. His team worked on designing this plan. At this January Parks Commission meeting, the Parks Board was asked to once again review, endorse, and recommend this plan to move forward to the City Council for consideration of the 2020 grant application. Ms. Rosenheim's in a tough spot. She's got a piece of property that if she doesn't take steps to armor it, she may have major property damage claims coming for her. She approached the city on trying to come up with a solution, and what we did was we recognized that Edgewater is the firm that we're going to be working with long-term to shore up Monroe Boulevard, to shore up the area along South Beach. It seemed like there was some synchronicity there. If she was willing to work with the engineers that we've been working with, it seemed to make a lot of sense. So Daryl does work with Greg Wykamp and the team at Edgewater. He's worked directly with her to plan something that should minimize impact on the public beach, should provide some benefit in long term of shoring up Monroe, and provides maximum benefit to her to keep her house from potential damage claims. Additionally, Nick Curcio, the city's attorney, has worked directly with Sue and her family on developing a license agreement. This license agreement is based largely on language that came from the city of St. Joe. St. Joe just a month ago was in the exact same situation with a home facing potential damage claims living that was immediately built adjacent to a city park. So we've tried to take some of the best practices we're seeing along the lakeshore and bring them to council. I do believe that if the council approves the license agreement, that you've got a well-insured document that for the next 20 years, that if it needs to go, it can go. If it needs to be rebuilt, it can be rebuilt, and those costs would be borne by the homeowner. Additionally, as we seek to improve our access to the South Beach and our ability to maintain Monroe Boulevard, it should work well with what is planned for the city's public improvements. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'll answer any question. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go back to a couple years ago, when Edgewater first came up. That was the other gentleman that has come to a lot of our meetings. And I remember attending the meetings, and I also remember walking the bluff with him. And I'll just put it in layman's terms, because I don't know what I don't know on this. But I remember him saying that they wanted a lot of natural growth going down that bluff so it would naturally hold the soil. And to put sand there, and to constantly put sand there, is like a losing battle when the water comes high. But I don't remember hearing about any stone like we're suggesting here. This has nothing to do with the homeowner. But is this a new idea, is it going to be stone all the way down, then covering it up, because we're starting to find the erosion is worse than we thought 2 years ago that it would ever be? Or how does all that come into play?
So item J, as you look at that plan, retaining wall. And that's exactly what's been called for since 2018, is part of this plan does call for the use of strategically placed retaining walls to control the amount of erosion. Now, the Edgewater plan is heavily focused on native species and heavily focused on covering those walls with native species to try and long-term prop them up so that you don't have failing walls. But I pulled this up from a 2018 design, 2 years in advance of today's conversation. So what material that retaining wall is, it's either going to be some type of concrete design, a block wall, or a steel sheet wall.
And I
So
think
if that
Joe-
was always the plan, to have the stone there, or some structure, will we get, and this is an Edgewater question, will we get an idea of whether this will work or not by this homeowner starting the process, those extra feet? Now we'll get an idea if this is going to work. Because the mayor said it, we don't really know, I don't think, for certain what the lake can do and what we can do to try to keep it back. So is this a good way of approaching it, this first 30 foot, to see if it's even going to work?
Well, absolutely. Yes, it is. And it makes sense to do it here because it's adjacent to her home. We're protecting a structure that is near the property line. I think you said it was 5 feet away, and we need to secure that. But now we could extend that through your property. We would look at other options and present those to you guys and say, all right, we got option A, B, C, and D, and maybe D is do nothing. Or, some combination of those, and we would come up to you and try to present the most financially prudent way of preserving your beach. The beautiful thing is a lot of times the sand just blows up on top there all by itself. I live down in St. Joe, and that sand is continuously blowing up and it's crossing the street. So the homeowner almost has to do nothing, or the city would almost have to do nothing if you put in your shoreline revetment. It's basically building a base. It's building a good foundation. And then on top of that foundation, you can put vegetation on it, different types of vegetation. And obviously, we would work with you and staff to make sure that we have the best plan available for you.
Thanks, that's a big help. I understand that as best I can.
Just to follow up on that statement, the wild situation that we're facing right now is just in the last 2 weeks, the council received a high water report. One of the images that was in that slideshow was directly to the north of this property, just north of the quote-unquote blue stairs. With the amount of erosion that we've seen, staff actually found an old steel seawall that is directly north of the blue stairs that has been buried for decades. And that's something that was there far longer than probably any of us. But that's the reality, is that wall was buried for decades, and we anticipate that as the water begins to recede, this wall will be buried. And additionally, as we pursue this consensus plan that is the long-term plan for Monroe, whatever material is ultimately selected by the council, it's hopefully going to be buried for many years to come.
And they have gotten better, because if you look back, there were steel walls that were put up. There are some places where they dumped city streets over the bluff to, because clearly this has happened before. So, I know there's a lot of engineering work now that's being done to discuss the sloping of the stone, so it's more natural and it deals with a wave impact. So there's a little more science, I think, than the past practice of just dumping a street over the bluff.
Correct, and that was the old school way of doing it. They break up a street or sidewalk and you just dump it over the edge. But now what we want to see is something more similar to what Rosenhains have done, is strategically place stone, and you want it on a nice angle. You want it on a 2-on-1, so you go 2 foot horizontally, 1 foot vertically, and the waves hit that and the energy dissipates, versus hitting a steel wall. And we've seen those all up and down, and that energy reflects back out and the wave gets bigger and it comes in and it just creates a bad situation. So these are options we look at for all the homeowners or property owners, whether they're cities, individual associations, or property owners.
Very good. All right. I think we've got it. There's no other questions. Any public questions before we move on? We have one question from the back. You'd like to come on up, state your name and address, and we've got the experts here.
Hello, my name is Patrick McKernan. I live at 251 Cherry Court. A couple questions regarding the building of this. The stones themselves, are they going to be placed right adjacent to the bluff, not further out from the bluff? Are they going to go down into the sand or the dirt that's there, bury it a little bit? And then how high up are they going to go? That's my question right now to you. I'll have more, but I'm just curious.
No, that's a very good question. Way we build these revetments is you have the large stones on the bottom. That's your building your foundation, and those are buried in the sand. They're deep. And then off of that, you come up on that 2-on-1 angle with stones. You're stacking them up. You're not dumping them in there. You're strategically placing them in there, and they kind of lock together. And they stay that way until the waves beat them up, and then you got to come back in and do maintenance.
How high up on the bluff do you plan on going at this time?
Basically, that cut you saw
So
on
where
that
the
one
erosion
picture.
is showing?
Right, it's
Yeah.
going to stop pretty much right there.
Okay.
It's not going to go any further
Right.
up into that native grass, whatever's there existing today.
Okay.
That material is starting to shift. I've been up there and I've seen cracks in the ground, in the dirt, about 2-3 inches wide, which is a little concerning because that could shift at any time, and today or in the spring.
I'm going to ask our IT guy in the back, Jared, if you could pull up 742 Monroe License Agreement Area, the PDF. That should help. One more try. Yeah. So I'm not sure if this helps the group to understand, this is the site plan. It doesn't give an elevation, but it does give you a general layout of what's planned.
This is a top view of the site.
That's correct.
Because one of my concerns had been where they're going to come out away from the bluff, because the homeowners built something that it goes way farther than it should, I believe. And therefore, I have a legal right to trespass on the beach when there's sand there, and now because of that thing standing out into the water, I can no longer trespass along there if I'm just going along the beach. So this looks like they are going to retain that idea that you, once the sand is visible again or whatever, I can still walk along the beach there. One thing that was sort of mentioned was about these vinyl bags and filling them with concrete or sand. I hope you don't go anywhere near that, because there are some over there now, and they're not attractive.
No, they're not attractive. The only way we would do that is as a temporary measure. We've been talking with John Beha from, I want to say MDEQ, but it's Meagle.
There we go.
Oh, yes, perfect. And what he wants to do is he wants to expedite this. Basically, we're going to extend the existing permit that we have out there so that we can go quicker, so we can eliminate that stage of using bags. But we were just wanting to get bags in there as a quick measure, as something to hold it in place while we're waiting for the permit to process. Sometimes that could take 3 to 6 months. And I would hate to see the bluff slide in or the house have a foundation exposed. So that's why that was suggested. Truthfully, we're trying to avoid that step. But again, that's going to be a function of our conversations with Army Corps of Engineers and the state of Michigan.
So you say if you were to place them, it would be temporary and they would be removed at a later date,
They would be buried, it would be a part of the base.
part of the base. So you'd cover them with stone eventually.
Correct. Correct.
All right. That answers my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? All righty, thanks for your information. Seeing none, any other council questions? Motion is second to approve the license agreement with the owners of 742 Monroe Boulevard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Sue, thanks for your patience and working with staff. I know this has been a process, and thanks for coming and sharing tonight, okay? Appreciate it. Next, we're going to have a presentation by Ms. A.J. Brooks, the Van Buren County Conservation District Executive Director. A.J., thanks for coming out tonight and hanging out till 8.
You guys are pretty quick. You know that it's looking like Michigan out there again.
Is it good?
It's beautiful on the way in, if you like that, I guess. Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I want to give a couple of you guys kudos, your mayor, your manager, and Kate, where you, Parks, assistant, yeah. You guys are all great. You follow up with my emails, and thanks for having me as well. You guys are all great, but I hear from those folks quite frequently, which is good, part of their jobs. I am AJ with the Conservation District. I have a few things. My text sent me with a little PowerPoint to show you too, but I've got some other quick updates about what's happening at the Conservation District. You guys should have received a contract for this year's 2020 recycling. That will probably be coming towards you guys in the next few months, but the 2019 numbers were quite impressive for the recycling. And our recycling coordinator wanted to give a shout out for South Haven, City of South Haven residents. Out of the two collections, you guys had 66 participants, which is huge. It was about 11.5% of the total participants, which is good, considering your guys' population too. So electronics last year was almost 40,000 pounds we were able to collect and recycle. Almost 7,000 passenger tires at our recycling collections. We did large tires for tractor tires and semi-tires this year. We worked with farmers. We got almost, or about 5,000 passenger tire equivalents. So if you were to add up all the tractor tires' weights and sizes, it would be about another 5,000 passenger-sized tires. 28,000 pounds of paint. Almost 14,000 pounds of chemicals. So that's like household cleaners, garage chemicals, barn chemicals that people were getting rid of. So instead of them dumping them out or throwing them in the trash or them ending up in our creeks and our ditches, they were properly recycled. And then 2,000 pounds of pesticides. So it was one of our largest collections yet. So the recycling is getting bigger and better. I'm happy to say, thanks to your guys' DPW, you housed the September collection, and we plan on having it there again with you guys. So it's a nice location. Our June collection was always in Paw Paw, and it's now, we're transferring it to Hartford because we've grown out of that location. We're getting 200-300 cars at a time in a couple hour span, and we've outgrown that, so that's a good thing. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me or Emily about any of the recycling things, but she'll be out and about going. When I got here today, I gave Brian some information on surveys. We are taking our natural resource surveys, so if you haven't gotten an email from me, please take it. It's on our website. I can leave these for all of you guys. For residents too, all of you guys back there. It's really important for us to find out what your guys' needs are, what the residents feel is important about our natural resources, so our water, our soil, our forests. Hearing about the lakeshore, I get a lot of phone calls from homeowners on the shoreline. I work with residents for vegetation removal when they go through permits and having to build those walls and working with those rock things. I certainly like to hear the word native. You guys have said native in a couple of your things. We work with folks on planting native and not ornamental or invasive, which brings us to the hemlock woolly adelgid program that we have. It's threatening our hemlocks. There's a band of hemlock trees that go down the coast. They really like sand dune areas, so along Lake Michigan. These hemlock woolly adelgid, or HWA, are teeny tiny little insects, and we're able to spot them in wintertime right now. So we have 2 techs that are on staff that are visiting properties and hitting the parks looking for this invasive species. It has been reported up in Allegan County, just about 15 miles north of South Haven. So it's really important for us to get on South Haven and South Haven Township property, as well as Covert and down into Berrien County, to see if we can find these insects. If they'll click through a couple slides. This picture right here is what a hemlock tree looks like. It has flat little needles with 2 gray stripes or silver stripes on the back side of them. They are evergreen trees, so they're green right now. in your yard. So we're asking if you guys know of residents that have these, or if you are residents that have these, to call us and let us come take a look. These little insects have little, like fuzzy little white sacs, which I think is the next slide. That's what our techs will be looking for, and we'll take a little snip and send it to the state to see if this is it. These little tiny insects will demolish the entire hemlock population if found, so we would like to keep it out of Van Buren and Berrien County before they arrive. So they are able to be treated. It's a long process and is expensive, so the quicker that we're able to see it, the better. So we certainly get permission letters from residents in order for us to go out, but we've been doing some mailers. If anybody has questions, they can call the office. We have 2 technicians, Logan and Abby, and then our invasive species coordinator, Nora Saraki, is happy to talk about this too. So far, we've sent in a few samples, and they turned out to be spider sacs instead of HWA, so that's good. And I think that's probably the last slide. Talks a little bit about where they're located at. So hopefully they stay north of us and don't come down this way. But hemlocks are really important for our dune ecosystem, what we have of dune ecosystem and what the waters are allowing us to still have. Certainly on those dunes, the more vegetation, the more native vegetation, the better. It holds the soil and the sand in place and can help with those erosion issues. So if you have questions, please let me know. Let's see, I think that probably wrapped it up unless anybody had questions about other district things.
I got a couple real quick things.
Sure.
First of all, you talk about the native species.
Yep.
So let's see here. I think our consultant ran off. Because in their report, they mentioned removal of a tree that if you talk to locals, they say, you need to have black locust. It's great for the banks. In the report, they said, remove the black locust. So we need somebody to settle this score eventually. So we'll double back. Maybe you could.
So, yep. Please contact me. I'd be happy to come to your guys' meetings about any of these properties. And it's hard for me not to comment in the lot, though. But the rock stuff, the landowner here was talking about the rocks absorbing energy, and that's really the way to go. If I try to explain it to people, if you were to punch a feathered pillow, if you'd punch your mattress or you would punch your wall in your bedroom, the sand would be a feathered pillow. That's going to absorb the most energy. The mattress would be the rocks that they're putting together, and the wall would be the concrete or steel barrier or what have you. And essentially when those waves hit those barriers, it's either going to dig under and destroy even more outside or go outside those walls and destroy neighbors' properties around. So I believe, and that's what I would suggest too, is what they're doing as well. But when it comes to species, I would be happy to come and evaluate properties and talk with you guys about or look at your plans too, if you want to send me plans and say, what do you think about that? The woman that was here with the DDA earlier, too, when it comes to street landscapes, a lot of people jump to Bradford pears, which were supposed to be sterile for a long time. They're the beautiful white ones that looked like Q-tips. They smell like dead, rotting fish. But everybody knows a Bradford pear. If you drive up and down most of our cities, have Bradford pears, and that's something that I would suggest you not plant and remove and put something that's more native that can still bloom beautifully and maybe smell a little bit better, but they're not sterile anymore, so we're starting to see them in our forests and in our farmlands, and they would have possibly eventually have issues with pollinating some of our agricultural fruit properties too, so which that'll cause issues for our agriculture.
Very good. And on the hemlocks, I know you've talked to Aaron, our arborist, which is helpful. 'Cause, I mean, I love my hemlocks are my favorite trees in my yard, and
they're very cool.
I've got to get them out. So
yep,
good.
I know that they've been working with Aaron at least last week. I think they've been in contact with him. So
yeah. And that's good. On the recycling, we put that in the waves, right? That's always gone in the waves. So
You
That's
guys,
good
yeah,
stuff.
you guys
so.
have always supported. We certainly, South Haven Township and the city both support, so it's really great to see.
Okay,
as
try to
well.
get it out. It's actually kind of funny because one of the things was I talked to a lot of the youth of our one high school advisory group.
Yeah.
They were critical of we don't do a good enough job recycling, and I just sort of said, well, we can do better. So you've got.
So we do have Emily as the coordinator for Van Buren County for the green schools too. So if you have contacts at the schools, they can contact Emily, and the school itself can start working on being a green school as well. So.
Sounds good.
Yep, the biggest thing I would like to say is please take our survey and let us know, and then pass it to 10 friends, families, neighbors to talk to too. I checked before I came today, we have 230 surveys already, which is huge for a survey, but very small compared to what our population is and who we want to hear back from. So the more people that we hear from that live, work, and play, they don't have to live or just work in Van Buren County. If they play in Van Buren County too, we want to let them tell us what's important to them.
And then last question, which number should people call if they want to have someone peek at their hemlocks? Is there a best number, or where do you want them to go look for your info?
Yep. Just to our website is fine, or they can call the 269-657-4030, extension 5. And they can just say, I'm calling about invasive species, and we'll get them hooked up with Logan and Abby, and they'll come right out. It's free, so we throw that in there. It's free. We'll come out and evaluate what you have. And invasive species as a whole, it doesn't have to necessarily be hemlocks. We work with the city a lot with Japanese knotweed and Phragmites and that sort of thing too. So
very good.
Yeah, great.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming out.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Citizens in the audience on items not on the agenda, would anybody like to comment on anything not on the agenda? Gail is moving. Gail's coming to the front. Welcome, Gail. Come on up.
Thank you. Gail Patterson Gladney, your Van Buren County Commissioner. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows March 10th is voting, and there's going to be 3 countywide millages, and one of them is the road millage. If anyone has questions and they'd like to find out more about the renewal, this one is a renewal, there's going to be a public information meeting Thursday, February 27th at 6 p.m. at the Van Buren Conference Center, and that's 490 South Pawpaw Street in Lawrence. Topics of discussion include a review of current road conditions, current available road funding, intent of the road millage renewal proposal, and the public input and questions. And they're asking that if you do have questions, prepare them ahead of time, because it is going to be a question and answer session. So that's mainly what I want to leave you with. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Gail. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Nobody else? All right. Going once, going twice. City manager comments.
All right, members of council, a few things to run through. First of all, we've got our priority setting session scheduled. As per norm, we'll be leaving the priority setting and then setting up time for the 2020 budget review session. So just as soon as possible, I'll get some dates out to all of you. As we look at the calendar for both March and April, those agendas are starting to fill up fast. As we talked about tonight, we'll have the narcotics millage renewal coming for the council. A couple of other topics of interest. I'm working now with Ryan Kilpatrick to get him down to update council on where he's at with some of the housing options for the Overton site. I'll be asking Ryan just to update the council on where we sit with some of his design concepts, his budget concepts, and then we can start talking with the council about what would be appropriate next steps. Additionally, I'll be working to get the council a presentation by Dr. Whitney DeCamp. Whitney is the lead professor who handled the city's community survey, and I'm asking for one of either him or someone from his team to present the council with the updates on that survey. So we're working to wrap that up now. Over the next week, this is going to be a busy week. Tomorrow, Kate is going to be representing the city in Lansing. She'll be speaking in front of a Senate subcommittee on high water issues. And the importance of this advocacy is really starting to bear some fruit. 3 months ago, between myself, Kate, and Bill, we were getting essentially no attention from just from what we were seeing, which is just a massive problem just growing by the day. What has really occurred over the last few weeks, a couple of months, is we are now getting quite a bit of attention from both the state and federal government. So we now have resources coming to us, not just from Van Buren County, but also from the Army Corps of Engineers. Later this week, we'll have a visit from Senator Stabenow. She has expressed interest in seeing some of the areas impacted by high water. I don't know how much time we'll get with her, but any time we can get is well worthwhile. We've been in regular contact with Senator Peters' office. He's also been expressing interest in learning more about what we're seeing here. I believe later this week, Kate will be giving a tour to Congressman Upton, just showing him some of the impacts of what's occurring in the South Haven area. And then in March, we'll have Senator Nesbitt down here on the city's beach, actually seeing firsthand what we're seeing. Last week, Governor Whitmer presented two things. The State of the State was a couple of weeks ago, and then last week was her budget proposal. So just a few months ago, there was essentially $0 that we could see available for our situation. And last week, with the announcement of the governor's budget proposal, there was now an earmark of $40 million made available to communities to help with some of the disaster recovery. As we talked with the council, our issue is knocking on a $20 million number. So $40 million may not go a long way, but knowing that that grant program is now going to be out there and available is something for us. We're kind of breathing a sigh of relief, seeing that some of this advocacy is working. So with that said, we've got a busy couple of weeks, and then as we look to March and April, we've got a busy couple of months. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'll answer any questions you all may have.
Don't have any questions? We got none. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. I'll start on the right. Mr. Reeser.
Well, I feel fortunate tonight. I have the opportunity to recognize one of our citizens. Yesterday, I went to Lily of the Valley Church, and Pastor Joe Wilkins was honored as the Black History Leadership Society inductee. So I'm going to read this to you because I don't think I can paraphrase as good as it was written. It is hereby duly noted, and Joe, maybe you could raise your hand so we all know who we're talking about, especially since you might be on TV tonight. Thank you. I know you don't like that. Excuse me. It is hereby noted that Pastor Joe Wilkins of Resurrection Life Ministries has devoted his life as a voice for so many who felt like they did not have a voice, and has been an advocate for those who are less fortunate, whether it be housing, equality, or justice. Pastor Wilkins has played a major role in organizing and sponsoring the Back to School Community Fun Day and book bag giveaway initiatives at Alkenburg Park for over 20 years. The hard work and dedication of Pastor Joe Wilkins has been a blessing for the youth community. The Black History Leadership Society commended Pastor Wilkins for his dedication to the youth and to the community, and that was done yesterday. And I have here, which the city manager is going to take time tomorrow, but this is a plaque, or this is a piece of gold medal that'll go up on the plaque and have Joe's name on it, along with other people that in the past have gotten recognition for being leaders in the Black community within South Haven. So Joe, I thank you for all your efforts in our community. It is wonderful to have you living here, so thank you.
Very good. Ditto that. Thanks, Joe.
I want to thank all those that are here tonight and those that are watching remotely. I do believe the process is definitely better the more people that participate. I also want to thank Bill Hunter and his staff for their maintenance of the city roads. So that's it.
No comment tonight.
No comment.
No comment.
Well, Mr. Reeser, Councilman Reeser already took my words, but I wanted to say thank you to the Black Leadership Society. I think it's Mrs. Gladney and Mrs. Dorothy Sherrod for inducting Pastor Wilkins, who just so happened to be my husband. And I just thought it was a wonderful occasion. And I'm not going to read what I had written down. Councilman Reeser already said everything. But in honor of Black History Month, which is this month, I wanted to read this quote. It says, Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Martin Luther King, Jr. And so I just want to take this time to ask for you to ask yourself, what are you doing for others to help others and to make this world a better place? Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say, Chief Thompson, Sheriff Abbott, Lieutenant Davis, thank you for being here. I get to sleep well at night because I know you folks and your staff are on patrol, so I do appreciate that. Thanks for coming out tonight, everybody, and please drive safely as it appears that winter may have returned. So I will seek a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.